Most agents hand a buyer a lender referral and move on, but the agents who win consistently in competitive markets do something different. They bring the financing conversation into the strategy conversation before any offer is written. Here's the scenario I see play out constantly. An agent has a qualified buyer, good credit, solid income, motivated to move. They get a pre-approval letter, they start looking at homes, and they lose 2 or 3 offers. The feedback from the seller side is usually the same. There was a stronger offer. But when we look at what the winning offers typically have in common, it's really just price. It's financing structure. It's down payment position, pre-approval depth, whether the buyer's been fully underwritten versus conditionally reviewed, whether there's flexibility to handle an appraisal gap. These are financing variables, not negotiation variables. And most agents don't know what questions to ask or how to use answers before the offer is written. Here are 3 financing levers every agent should understand before their buyer writes an offer. Lever 1, down payment is a competitive signal. A larger down payment isn't just about the loan to value. It signals a financial stability to the seller. A buyer putting 20% or more down in a competitive situation is telling the seller that their financing is unlikely to fall apart. A buyer putting 5% down in the same situation carries more perceived risk, even if both are technically pre-approved. Agents who understand this can help buyers decide whether to increase their down payment position on a specific offer, not permanently, but strategically. Lever 2 is the fully underwritten pre-approval versus the standard pre-approval. A pre-approval letter says a lender's reviewed the buyer's application and believes they can qualify. A fully underwritten approval says underwriting has already reviewed the file, the income, assets, employment, and the only remaining condition is the property itself. The difference is how a seller perceives these 2 documents as significant. Sellers' agents know the difference. An underwriting approval shortens the path to close and reduces the seller's risk. Lever 3 is the appraisal gap commitment. In markets where properties routinely go above list price, an appraisal gap is a real possibility. A buyer who commits in writing before the offer to covering a specific dollar amount above the appraised value is removing the seller's biggest fear in an over-asking transaction. Not every buyer can do this, but for buyers who have the reserves, it's a meaningful differentiator that has nothing to do with the offer price. 3 levers, all of them are conversations that should happen before the offer is written at the buyer consultation, not after the 3rd rejection. Here's what this looks like in a real transaction. An agent called me after her buyer lost 3 consecutive offers. All 3 were at or near asking price. All 3 went to another buyer. The feedback each time was that they had stronger offers. But when we looked at the buyer's current position, solid pre-approval, 10% down, no appraisal gap commitment, standard setup, there was nothing wrong with it, but nothing differentiated about it either. So we had a 30-minute conversation. The buyer had significantly more in savings than the 10% she was putting down. She'd just never been told there was a strategic reason to show more of it. So we increased the down payment to 20%. We got her fully underwritten, which took 4 days. We prepared an appraisal gap addendum for up to $15,000. Her next offer was accepted. Same purchase price as the previous 3 that lost. The seller's agent told our agent, this offer felt the most certain to close. That's a financing perception, not a price perception, and it was entirely within our control to create it. Treating the lender referral as the end of the financing conversation rather than beginning of it, when an agent refers a buyer to a lender, that's step 1. The conversation that should follow before any properties are identified is, what does this buyer's competitive position actually look like? What levers do they have? And what are their constraints? Where are the gaps we can close before they're under time pressure? That conversation is a 20-minute call. It's the difference between a buyer who is reactive to the market and a buyer who has a plan for it. The agents I work most closely with have this conversation with every buyer before the first showing. One thing to do this week with every buyer who is actively shopping, ask them 3 questions. What is your actual down payment capacity? Not your planned down payment, but your maximum. Number 2, have you been fully pre-underwritten or just pre-approved? Number 3, if an appraisal comes in short, is there flexibility to cover a gap? The answer to those 3 questions tell you what your buyer's actual competitive toolkit looks like. Then bring me into the conversation and I can help you translate those answers into a structure that makes your buyer the most attractive option the seller sees before the offer is ever written. Schedule a call at teamaronheim.com for realtors or text me at 303-596-9077. The agents I work with most consistently are the ones who think about financing as a competitive tool, not a qualification box to check. If that's how you approach your buyer's work, that's who I want to be talking to. Schedule a call at teamaronheim.com for realtors or text me at 303-596-9077.